I'm teaching them to hold their heads up. Screw imposter syndrome. It is very daunting for a lot of our people, especially women, in a society that's misogynist and racist. In the liberal spaces of foundations, there's racism, but it's a lot of bias. Latinos are different because we're looked past, we're ignored. We're like furniture. We're the guy cutting the lawn you don't see. We're invisible. Latinas are seen as a commodity sexually. They're not seen as women. They're not seen as smart. They're not seen as leaders. Right now, Latino civil rights nonprofits in the US are phenomenally weak. They don't have budgets. They barely have staff. And they're fighting, monster. And so they don't have the resources to really do what other like NAACP or other organizations for racial minorities in the US would do. They're just not there. So for years, I asked myself, what about this? This is terrible. What are we going to do?
Hi, friends! Ever wondered how you could turn your big ideas into results? Together, let's reimagine a better sector, tackle systemic issues, and yes, raise some serious cash. Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Maria Rio, and I'm dedicated to making sure that EDs like you get the funding they need without the stress. Today, I have a guest who's going to be talking all about the stress that his community is facing. Armando, hello.
Well,
If you could just briefly introduce yourselves to my audience, I would really appreciate that.
I'm Armando Zumaya. I'm a 40-year fundraising veteran, the founder of Somos El Poder, the first Latino fundraising institute in the country. I do a little consulting, but I mostly lead this institute and help Latino nonprofits improve their fundraising. You name the type of fundraising, I've done it. Arts, education, youth, all sorts of things. All over the country, a little bit in Canada, a little bit in Mexico, and a little bit in the UK.
Nice, amazing. I'm also Latina. I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico. I came to Canada as a refugee when I was 9 years old. And always working in a very white space kind of made it difficult. Donors complimenting my English, my boss asking me to put on an accent for this video, or even to talk to donors on the phone, like put on an accent to sound more Mexican or more whatever they wanted me to sound like. I love that you've taken it upon yourself to do something about that and create a space for Latinos. How did that come to be for you? Like, why was this important to you? And then how did you get started?
I've been in this a long time and I go to major conferences and there's nothing about our community. Fundraising training is designed for large institutions that pay big dollars to come to these big conferences. That's who gets the attention. So it's a cycle of the rich getting richer. Universities, hospitals, museums. The small, medium, local Latino nonprofit never got anything. No one supports them or gives a damn about them. And growing up in East LA myself, I saw a lot of injustice. I saw police violence. I saw shootings. And I've experienced more than my fair share of racism and bias from people, all sorts of things. So over time, as a fundraiser, you ask yourself, how come our nonprofits are so small and so weak? Right now, Latino civil rights nonprofits in the US are phenomenally weak. They don't have budgets. They barely have staff. And they're fighting, monster. And so they don't have the resources to really do what other like NAACP or other organizations for racial minorities in the US would do. They're just not there. So for years, I asked myself, what about this? This is terrible. What are we going to do? And then I started consulting a little bit and help these organizations understand fundraising and improve the fundraising. And then I personally, in my own work, raised $1 million gift for my Latino. And I just kept asking myself, hey, how come this isn't that? And I looked at the organizations in the Hispanic Latino space and philanthropy. They're all about helping foundation program officers. They weren't about fundraisers. So I told my dad, I'm sure someone's doing it. So then he made me look and I was like, no one does this. Nobody. Not only that, but nobody trains small, medium nonprofits in fundraising. Nobody. I mean, it's crazy to say, right? The large majority of nonprofits in the US don't get training designed for small, medium nonprofits. They're designed for bigger institutions. So I just had this come to Jesus moment, literally, where I was just like, you know what, someone's got to do this. I'm going to do it. So that's how it got founded during the pandemic.
I feel like I'm very familiar with the principles of community-centric fundraising and how that started, and that's all well and good. But sometimes I don't know exactly that everyone who is our peer or our allies know the kind of conversations that we're having in these spaces. So, what kind of topics are you talking about in conferences and teaching fundraisers to help them better prepare for their unique role as Latino fundraisers?
I'm teaching them to hold their heads up. Screw imposter syndrome. It is very daunting for a lot of our people, especially women, in a society that's misogynist and racist. In the liberal spaces of foundations, there's racism, but it's a lot of bias. Latinos are different because we're looked past, we're ignored, we're like furniture. We're the guy cutting the lawn you don't see. We're invisible. Latinas are seen as a commodity sexually. They're not seen as women, they're not seen as smart, they're not seen as leaders, they're seen as their physical bodies. It's horrendous. This is so common. And so what I teach our people is to hold your head high, remember who you're from and what you're doing, create gravitas and strength in what you're doing. Don't get down to fit into the space, make the space bigger. Operate here with strength and pride, and everything else will come along. Do what you're doing and be proud of your work. I just don't want people to feel that the space isn't safe for them. And you're right, it's very daunting for Latino funders. It's a much smaller population of Latinos in Canada. But in the US, there are huge shops of fundraisers in the Southwest with no Latinos. Unfortunately, I can look at the pictures of the staff and say, there's the Latina, she's admin. And yep, every time. Every time. I'll tell you one thing. La Vanguardia is one of our, the Vanguard is one of our certificate programs. It's a certificate program of ours, fundraising. And I started it because every year I'd get 4 or 5 phone calls of, you don't know me. My name is Maria Rio. I'm an associate director of development. I've been here for 6 years. Every year or two, my white girl boss leaves. I do her job for a year, then they hire another white girl. They won't let me apply for her job because I'm not trained and they won't train me. What do I do? So I got sick of that conversation and I literally lost my temper one day after the phone call. I said, I'll make my own certificate. I'm not going to wait for AFP or, NSFRE or whatever to come up with this because they won't. There's no impetus. There's no fire behind it. And I've heard for years all these other fundraising organizations talk about us, but we're always smushed into BIPOC. Screw that. It's about Latinos. We're 20% of the population. We're going to be 30% of the population. So, this is our country. So I'm not going to sit in the back seat. That's how I found that program. Don't wait for the current institutions to work on it because I've been watching it for 40 years and it hasn't moved.
That's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like when I'm seeing all the kind of global conflict and instability, like Ukraine, Palestine, Venezuela, like no one's coming to save you. You basically have to save yourself because a lot of people are thinking very individualistic and, oh, that kid's too far or that person's career doesn't concern me. But it gives us a pass in ignoring systemic issues and just pretending they're individualized when like that it's like the Latina is the admin person. They're never given that opportunity to grow their skills. So it's just a pretty hard time because we had to build those movements and resources ourselves when we're already disenfranchised or put down.
Latinos have to realize 3 things. 1, we're unified. You have to be together. Boricua, Chicano, Mexican American, Guatemalteca. We have the same people who want to keep us down. As opposed to the past, there's an open effort to hate us, dehumanize us. ICE raids in Venezuela, es lo mismo. Okay? They're saying they're not really people. It's okay to kill them. It's okay to destroy their lives. As opposed to other racial groups in this country where there's outrage. People like, you can put their kids in cages. There's some outrage, but not really. Nor do you see it reflected in philanthropy. Show me the river of money going to the Latino community. It doesn't exist. It's the opposite. They're running from us. I can name Latinos that have died in ICE custody, and now this poor woman in Minneapolis. The Latinos who die in ICE custody, no one knows their names. They're not on the front of the New York Times. It's a Latino, it's a Mexican. Come on. We're 3/4 of a man. Okay. And that's just the bottom freaking line in this country. So the only way Latinos will ever gain power in this country is through marshaling our resources. Okay? The way other minorities have in the past in this country. And the only way to marshal resources is fundraising. So what we're doing is pivotal to Latino power. That's not oppressive. That's about helping the whole community, not just Latinos. It's about making it a better country. We're not trying to put anybody down. This country pivots on Latinos. Just got accepted an op-ed in Alliance magazine in London. The title of the op-ed is American Latinos Are Calling, Will Europe Answer? Because European foundations who support civil rights, persecuted minorities across the world need to see us. Things have changed now. I mean, it was bad before, but now I can go to the store and get arrested for looking the way I do. The U.S. is not the same country anymore. Period.
I was thinking about that when I found that woman had been shot in the face by ICE. I was thinking like, oh, she's white. Like now they're going to take it seriously.
She had been a Guatemalteca, there would not be any outrage. People roll their eyes. I'm like, I can tell you names of people who died, and it gets some mention a little bit in the LA Times, but that's it.
And we saw a really big response to the murder of George Floyd. I don't know if it's because like they were able to watch him die on camera or what inspired such an emotional response from like philanthropy and organizations with their statements and all that stuff.
It was visual. But there's been Latinos who have been killed that are very visual too. It just doesn't get to national media. The African American community has its act together. They have civil rights organizations, leaders who can put pressure on philanthropy and heat on them and call them out. Our organizations are bound to corporate funders, and they're like, we don't want to upset anybody. There's this quiet on our side. And then there's this subtle implicit bias bordering on racism. When you look at organizations or funders for racial justice, it doesn't reflect who are the biggest racial justice groups in the country. You can look at special funds at community foundations or foundations across the country. You'll find many Black-led funds. You will not find Latino-led funds. So you can quantify this. Racial justice money does not come toward us. Okay, does not come toward Latinos. It's not like they hate us. And I want plenty of money to go to the Black organizations, right on. Those are our sisters and brothers. But I don't want us to be sitting there with a sandwich with no meat in it either. That's what's happening, is we're looked past. And we're an afterthought. I've seen so many panels on racial justice, and there's no Latinos on the panel. And I'm the jerk that goes, hey, where are the Latinos? They're like, oh, yeah, we meant to do that. It's like, no, you can see our racism. Now it's open in public. Still doesn't move the needle. So for me, we need louder voices.
What do you think Latino leaders should be doing now when it comes to advocacy? Should we be thinking, this is a scary time, let me put my head in the sand and try to stay safe because I can't be deported, I have a family, I have things going on, right? Or should they be thinking like, this is the time to meet the moment and do something about it?
If they think they're going to hide, if they think money or wealth or their business is going to save them, they're wrong. And I'm not talking about to the president. There are other people in charge who don't see you as a human being, who see your success as illegitimate, just pure racism. And then there's a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, I'll just go back to my native country. It's like, you're either here or you're not. If you want to go back to Mexico, that's great. Bye. But if you're here, you need to support our people. Life's more than you buying a Mercedes-Benz. It's about supporting and fighting for our people. It's about a bigger picture. And that whatever way you do that in your world, you write a check, you hire good people, whatever way you do that, do it. But don't just create wealth for yourself and think that's a civil rights victory. It's not. You have to help people. And that's what brings people the most joy in life. Isn't material accumulation and glory and the awards they get. It's helping people, it's changing lives.
And would your advice be the same for white executive directors? Maybe their mission doesn't align with, racial justice, because sometimes they use that as a reason to not speak out, right?
Yeah, well, it's an authoritarian society. This is the start. I have a friend dear friend who says, oh, it's getting better. I hope it is. But we can't bank on that. So this is the start of, you can't be a woman and be a CEO. You can't be gay and be in a restaurant. These people would love to go take us back to where white straight men rule everything. They don't want Latinas in college. They surely don't want us to the Supreme Court. This would be massively destructive to the economy. Already, we're seeing a destruction of tourism. Already, we're seeing brains who should be coming here are going to Canada. Why wouldn't you? Speaking up is selfishly a smart thing to do. It's not like you can just conduct business in this little vacuum where no one's going to bother you. Forces won't come into your world. This didn't happen in other societies in the past. Yeah. So, anyway, we're speaking not about fundraising, but about bigger things.
I think that's exactly what we should be talking about as a sector. And even with the work that I've done, like I talk to donors about white supremacy, wealth hoarding, me being Latina, and like all the stuff that I've been through with like past organizations. Like I definitely have those conversations, but I just don't think that it's enough. Right. So it's like, what are the systemic things that we can be doing, that we could be fighting for, that do put us in those seats? So in Canada, we have something called the 30% challenge, where 30% of your board should be racialized people, not white people, because Board Source and also Stats Canada both have stats that say we're not getting on boards, we're not getting into leadership positions, and we know why. But what are the systemic things that we can do to kind of like force their hand?
Interesting. So I've done a lot of board diversification work here in the States. There's a big environmental organization in California, and they have an all-white board in California. 48% of the population is Latino. So all I did was identify people of color who care deeply about the environment and have given that way. So I got them 3 new board members, 2 Latinas and an African-American woman. The Latino made a $50,000 gift, largest board gift they've ever had. And over the years, this is about 4 years ago, changed that organization because now you're seeing their outreach, where they're going. The rest of the new board, the staff are changing because it's no longer a white room where they're talking about this issue. It's like, well, what about that community? Oh, yeah, they wouldn't even been brought up. So you could replicate that in Canada. This is not hard to do. And there's a lot of multicolored money in Canada. So you have to bring people on who are not tokens, who can look at the white man in the board table. I give as much as you do. That's what you call changing the game, because there's lots of tokenizing going on with board members. Look at U.S. foundations and their Latinos on their board. That's a trip. They're not there. There's about 4 or 5 foundations in the country where they have more than one Latino on the board. There's a couple that are really excellent. One I like to hold up is Chicago Community Trust. That's what all boards in the U.S. should look like these days, because they have 4 or 5 Latinos, power Latinos on their board. There's no tokens. These are rich, connected, powerful people. Why doesn't LA have that? Why doesn't San Francisco? Why doesn't Miami have that in New York? They don't. It's just the way board recruitment is done. It's not done scientifically. It's not done where you say, okay, we're in Toronto. What does demographics look like in Toronto? Where's the diverse money in those demographics? Where are the industries making money here? How do we construct this board for maximum benefit for the organization to reach maximum communities?
What would you want the executive directors listening to this episode to take away as actionable things to do?
Invest in fundraising. If you don't like fundraising and you're needy, go find another profession. But you have to diversify your fundraising immediately. And that means if you don't have individual donors, you need to build that and learn how to do that. If you're a Latino or Latina, join Somos. It's very simple. It will help you directly. It's intentionally inexpensive. Do fight your fight. Be part of the resistance, whatever you're working on. If we all do our little bits, it'll make the difference. It'll turn the tide. But don't quit. Don't get discouraged. Don't get afraid. People want us to give up and go back and just pick grapes. That's what they want. It's absurd. There's a lot of people throwing up their hands, and we don't want that. If you're Canadian, please help us. Canadians need to see us as their friends and allies, and we need your support. Help us in whatever way you can, especially Canadian philanthropy. It needs to look at us and say, hey, let's do something. This is the long game. I do think it's temporary, ugly and horrific, but temporary.
If people want to continue the conversation, where can they find you?
Just email me, Armando at somoselpoder.org. You can go to our website. It's the name.org, and my email's all over the darn place there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and having this conversation. I know that it's a lot to go through. I can't even imagine. So I really appreciate the leadership that you're showing in the space and how you're like really trying to shift the narrative for fundraisers themselves, but also the broader picture, because it's a very scary time.
It is, but nothing succeeds like hope and love. Latinos in the U.S. have powerful hearts. We love our families in a way only we truly understand. And people who want us to give up on our children's and our grandchildren's future, they're going to lose. We don't quit. This is what they fear about us the most. We work hard. We love big. We're like the waves of the ocean. You can build all the pendejo walls you want to stop us, but we keep coming. My dad, who was born in 1928, and he's in heaven, he told me about the mass deportations in the 30s. He told me his family left, this family was taken away. The sheriffs just get in and take them, leave the possessions behind, just take them. And they deported 2 million people. And then, I was upset. My papa looked at me, he goes, don't worry. We came back. I was like, hell yes, we did. There's 62 million of us here. They can hate on us and hurt our most vulnerable people right now, but we'll come back.
We work hard, so I know that we'll come back.
Always, siempre adelante, as we say at Somos.
Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. As always, if you want to watch this episode, you can do so on YouTube and look at our lovely faces over there. But I really want you to start thinking about how your organization could be a better ally to different types of communities, especially the Latino community, because as you see, the situation is pretty dire, especially in the States and with Venezuela. So definitely do something. Don't just listen to this episode and walk away. Think it through. And as Armando said, take control over the little things that you can to make the world a better place. But that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.